tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the sides whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the second part of, What If Harry Potter Enters Elfen Lied? Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Gamer95 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Lucy's eyes opened when the sun shone in her face. She made an attempt to shield her eyes but realized that there was a weight on her arm. She blinked, then smiled softly as she realized she knew exactly what was on her arm. Little Harry was clutching on her arm and was snuggled to it. She carefully turned her head to look at the peacefully sleeping little boy she was raising. Using her free arm, she brushed some hair away from his eyes. "I'm so glad I found you." Just as she thought that, Harry's eyes started to twitch as he slowly opened them. She blinked, then her smile widened slightly as she prepared to give him a morning greeting. Within moments, Harry was fully awake and felt something kiss his forehead. He blinked sleepily, as whoever was kissing his forehead was allowing their lips to linger. When the lips were gone, he was able to see Lucy's smiling face. "Good morning, Harry." Lucy greeted him. Harry smiled softly up at her. "Good morning, Miss Lucy," he said quietly. "Did you have a nice sleep?" Lucy asked him, getting a nod from him. "You're really warm," he replied shyly, blushing. Lucy chuckled. "Thank you. I'm happy to hear that," Lucy told him. Harry smiled at her. He was so happy when she was with him. She was so kind to him, she was like a mother, almost. "Are you hungry?" Lucy asked him, interrupting his thoughts. He nodded eagerly, now fully comfortable with letting her know when he needed to eat. Lucy smiled. "All right, let's go get something to eat," Lucy said as she wrapped her arms around Harry and got off the bed with Harry in her arms. Harry snuggled closer into her and rested his head in the crook of her neck. She left the room and headed to the front lobby. "What do you want for breakfast?" she asked. Harry thought for a moment but found nothing coming to mind. "I don't know," Harry told her. "I'll think of something." "All right," Lucy said as she walked around for a little bit to get to the breakfast area of the hotel. "I'm sure they'll have a menu," she said calmly. "Don't worry too much." Before long, they were finally able to make their way to where the food was being served. She entered the room to see that the other occupants of the hotel was already eating and conversing with each other. She sighed. To think she had considered humans evil, irredeemable monsters, but now she saw the truth. While some humans were as bad as she used to think all were, there were some that was capable of wonderful things. And even then, many of them were normal. Just trying to live their lives. How many of those people had she killed in her rampages? Then her mind thought of Kuta and how she killed both his sister and his father. She felt an immense pain in her heart at the pain she had caused the first human to ever show her kindness. "Are you okay?" Harry asked, breaking her from those painful memories. Lucy shook her head and forced a smile. She had to stay strong for Harry. "I'm fine," Lucy told him. "I'm just remembering some things." "Oh, are they bad?" Lucy's eyes dimmed. "Kind of. It's best that I don't talk about them, Harry." Harry nodded in understanding. "Okay, Miss Lucy. Maybe I'll tell you when you're old enough to understand." Harry nodded again as they went to an empty table. Lucy sat Harry down and pushed his chair in. After he was securely in his seat, she sat down next to him. "Do you want to look at the menu?" she asked. Harry nodded and Lucy handed him the menu that was in front of her. "What are you going to have?" Harry looked through the breakfast part of the menu and saw that they had pancakes. He looked at his caretaker and pointed to the breakfast item. Is this okay? She looked at what food item he was pointing at and nodded her head. Yes, that is okay. Lucy said with a smile. She herself settled on a simple bowl of oatmeal. After a while, a waiter came over and took their order, then left, only to appear minutes later with their food. Harry happily dug into his pancakes. Lucy smiled as she slowly ate her oatmeal. Seeing her charge happy meant the world to her, but if only she didn't have to run from the people chasing her. Then she could give Harry a stable home. If only she didn't have these DMN horns. If only she wasn't a monster. She stopped eating, gazing down at her meal and squeezing her spoon. Noticing that Lucy stopped eating and looked distressed, Harry stopped eating and looked at Lucy with concern. Miss Lucy, what's wrong? Harry asked her, making her look at him with a forced smile. It's nothing, Harry, she said softly. I'm just thinking. He was about to ask what she was thinking about, then remembered what she told him earlier about telling him when he's older. He figured that what she was thinking now was similar, so he didn't ask. Lucy looked at Harry. Was caring for him a good idea? What if she accidentally did something to hurt him? She knew that it would be best to keep Harry away from her to protect him. But the thought of doing so made her heart ache. She shook her head. No, that would hurt Harry too. With no other option, she decided that she would keep Harry with her and try not to hurt him. She felt a little better with that in mind, and resumed eating her oatmeal. After seeing that she didn't look troubled anymore, Harry continued to eat his breakfast as well. He began to worry that oatmeal wouldn't be enough for Lucy, though. Lucy? Lucy looked at him. Do you want some of my pancakes? Lucy blinked in confusion before smiling. That's okay, Harry. The oatmeal will be enough. Are you sure? Harry asked, tentatively holding out a forkful of pancake for her. They're really good. Deciding to humor him, Lucy took the offered fork. Alright, but only one forkful, okay? Lucy told him. The Diclonius put the pancakes into her mouth. She chewed the fluffy pancake and hummed in pleasure. Thank you, Harry. Now enjoy the rest of your breakfast. Harry nodded and started eating the rest of his pancakes while Lucy ate her oatmeal. She smiled softly. Harry was so sweet, hopefully she would be able to give him a good enough life despite being on the run. Within a few minutes, they finished their breakfast. Lucy smiled at Harry from across the table. Did you enjoy your breakfast? Lucy asked him. Harry nodded happily. Yes, Lucy, it was yummy. That's good. Lucy said with a smile. What would you like to do now? Harry thought for a moment, not sure what to do next. Can we go outside? Sure we can. Lucy told him as she stood up and lifted Harry off the chair. Is there anywhere in particular you'd like to go? Harry bit his lip. Can we go to the park? Harry asked her, always wanted to go to the park but never being allowed. Lucy held him closely. Of course. She replied. She and Harry headed out of the food service area and out of the hotel. I'm certain there's a park nearby, Lucy thought. She was so preoccupied that she didn't notice that someone was following them. The man following them sneered. He was the sole survivor of the gang that Luke and later Brando killed. And he was not a happy camper. I'll get you, you bee. He spat. After 5 minutes, Lucy was able to find a park for them to hang out. And it was entirely empty, as it was still early and most people were at the bigger park downtown. What do you think? Is this a good park? Lucy asked. Harry looked around and nodded. It looks amazing. Harry told her. Good. Lucy nodded. They looked around for a bit to see what they would do first. Slide? Harry suggested timidly. Lucy nodded and carried him to the slide. She watched as he climbed to the top. When he got on top, he sat there and breathed in before tilting himself forward and sliding down. Lucy caught him when he reached the bottom. When Lucy saw his face, it was filled with absolute glee. It warmed her heart to see him happy. She remembered when he was a scared, confused little boy who was reluctant to ever leave her arms. But now he was the happy little boy that he should have been if it wasn't for his despicable relatives. It was odd that she of all beings was the one to give him such happiness. Just then, 3 shots were heard and her instincts told her that something was about to hit her back. Without hesitation, she used her vectors to shield herself and Harry from bullets. Harry let out a soft yelp at the sound and latched onto his caretaker as tightly as he could, eyes squeezed shut, trembling. Lucy glared towards where the bullets came from to see a man that was wearing similar clothes as the gang from last night looking at her in surprise with a gun pointed at her. She snarled, eyes narrowed dangerously, then rose to her feet, standing in front of Harry protectively. "You've made a terrible mistake," she growled. The man started to shake as he wildly shot her, only for them to bounce harmlessly off her vector shield. She scowled. "If you hit Harry with one of those, I'm not going to be happy." The man started to panic as he shot the rest of his clip at her. Lucy saw he was empty, then turned to see if Harry was okay. Harry looked horribly shaken, but other than that he was okay. Lucy knelt down and gave him a quick hug. Harry hugged her back, tears streaming from his eyes. "That was scary," he said softly. Lucy made soothing sounds to try to calm him down. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's over now." As she felt that, she felt something impact her vectors. She looks to see that the man threw his gun at her. She raised a brow, utterly baffled by what had just happened. "Seriously?" she said flatly. "Are you serious right now?" The man just stood there for a few moments before running away, yelling about a monster chick. Lucy was tempted to run after him and tear his limbs off, but she thought better of it. Especially when she needed to make sure that Harry was okay. She sighed before scooping him into her arms and carrying him to the bench. She sat down and placed Harry on her lap, then started to rub his head. "Don't be afraid," she said softly. "It will be all right." Harry sobbed. I was so scared," Harry told her. "I thought you were gonna get hurt." Lucy was touched by how much he cared for her safety. "It's all right, I wouldn't allow someone like him to hurt me or you." She bent down and kissed his forehead. Harry sniffed then smiled. "I love you, Mommy." Lucy felt her heart stop. Did he just call me his mommy? Lucy thought as countless thoughts raced through her head. What is this warmth? Can I do this? Does he really want me as his mother? Her mind was so preoccupied, she didn't see Harry's eyes widen as he realized what he said. What had he done? Now she was going to hate and abandon him. He closed his eyes, awaiting the inevitable. After a few more moments, nothing happened. Confused by this, Harry opened his eyes and looked up. She was simply staring at him. Harry felt very worried for the pink-haired woman that was so nice to him. Then, she smiled. After a few moments, she spoke. "Do you really think of me as your mother?" Lucy asked, throwing Harry off guard. Harry looked at her with huge, adorable eyes. I do." Harry eventually said, then looked down, thinking that she was about to say that she doesn't want to be with him anymore. Instead, he felt a pair of arms around him. Harry was shocked and looked at her, to see that she was giving him a smile and had tears threatening to fall. "Mommy loves you too, Harry," she said softly. Harry's eyes widened. He almost couldn't believe that she said that and she accepted being his mother. Harry started to get teary-eyed as he hugged his new mother. Lucy sobbed slightly as she held him tightly against her chest. "I'm probably not the best choice for being your mother, but I'll do the best I can," Lucy told him. "I'll always protect you. And I'll always love you." Harry looked up into her eyes, and teared up. Then, he began to sob softly. Lucy looked at him with a sad expression and gently pushed his head into her chest and rubbed his head. "Hey, why are you crying?" she asked softly. Because no one has ever been so nice to me," Harry was able to say between sobs. Ivy never been so happy." Lucy bit her lip and teared up as well, holding him tighter. Me neither," Lucy told him as they both sobbed as one. They stayed like this for another hour before they exhausted their tears. Lucy took a deep breath and stood, cradling Harry like a baby. They both were emotionally exhausted and decided to head back to the hotel to take a rest. As she walked, Lucy couldn't stop gazing down at her son. She could help but feel happiness swell up in her at the thought that someone would be willing to be her son. As she walked towards the hotel, she had a skip to her step. Anyone who had known her beforehand would have been utterly baffled to see her so happy. For the first time in her life, she was truly happy. And she wasn't going to let anyone take that happiness away from her. A few days has passed since the incident in the park. The punk that tried to shoot Lucy was found a few hours later and arrested for firing a weapon in a public place. He was currently doing time with a Mr. Shirley Watterson. Lucy couldn't have been happier to hear the news the day after. Harry was relieved too. He had been worried the man would try to hurt him and his mother again. Speaking of his mother, the days that followed was some of the best that Harry has ever experienced. He hung out with his newly dubbed mother for hours on end and he couldn't have been happier for it. Lucy was overjoyed as well. She finally had someone to love and cherish for once in her horrible life filled with pain and misery. Sure, she had coulda but she had ruined that soon after meeting him. The memory of what she did was one of the moments that she wished she could go back to change but knew she couldn't. But this child had given her a chance. A chance to redeem herself. And she would do everything in her power to make sure nothing happened to him. It was time for her to go grocery shopping, however. They couldn't rely too much on the hotel's food because it only served breakfast. Besides, she had developed an interest in cooking. So she bought some groceries a few days ago using some of the money she obtained from the police to get some food for her to experiment with. So today she was going back to the grocery store to get enough food for them to live off of for the next few days. She took Harry to the front desk, knowing that the man that allowed them to stay there the first night free would look after him. Until she came back. When she walked into the front desk, she sat Harry down on a chair near the desk. Harry smiled as she knelt down to kiss his cheek. "I'll be back in a few minutes, please stay here until I get back," Lucy told him. Harry smiled and nodded. "'Kay, mommy," he replied. He would never disobey his beloved mother. Lucy smiled as she stood up and gave Denny Stevens a nod, who gave one back and smiled. Lucy then remembered their exchange a little while after Lucy brought Harry back to the room after the park incident. Flashback. "You wanted to talk to me?" Lucy asked calmly as she approached the little old man. "Yes, I did," Denny said nervously. "While I was happy to let you and your son stay the night last night, I can't really afford to let you two stay for free for another night," he explained. Lucy blinked. Then she nodded. "Okay." Denny smiled. "Great, so what are you planning to do now?" "I have plenty of money. I can pay for a few more nights." Denny nodded in understanding. "I hope you'll enjoy your stay then." Lucy smiled at the man's words. "Don't worry, Denny, we will." End flashback. And so, she placed a hand on her child's cheek. "See you soon, Harry," Lucy told him as she retracted her hand and stepped out the door. Harry watched after his adopted mother with a happy smile, grateful to have her. After she was no longer visible, Harry decided to look around the room while sitting in the chair. After 5 minutes of doing this, the door opened and Harry looked to see who it was. He shrunk back when he saw a large, intimidating man step in, a cigarette in his mouth. He only spared Harry a glance before turning his attention towards Denny and walking towards him. "Hey, old-timer. Get me a room, will ya?" Sure thing. As quickly as he said that, he fetched a key from behind him. Great. Thanks. Bando said curtly as he turned to head upstairs. He spared Harry another glance before walking up. What's that kid's deal? He thought. When the man was out of sight, Harry sighed in relief. He was scary. He mumbled. Unfortunately for Harry, the man came back down a few minutes later. Forgot my smokes, he muttered, taking a box of cigarettes from the front desk. He turned back around to see that Harry was still sitting there like a statue. He raised a brow. Seriously, what is with this kid? The man thought as he shook his head and went up to his room. Whatever, I need to focus on finding the Diclonius bee. He came back down 20 minutes later to go get something to snack on from the nearby convenience store and saw that Harry was still there even after so much time. Okay, this kid is starting to creep me out. Brando thought, never seeing a kid so young stay in one place for so long. It's none of my DMN business, leave the BRT be, he thought. So Bando left the hotel and traveled a block away to the convenience store to get a sandwich. When he came back 15 minutes later, lo and behold, Harry was still there. Bando couldn't help but blink at the kid in curiosity. Okay, I need to get to the bottom of this. He quickly stuffed the wrapped sandwich into his pocket and walked over to Harry. Hey kid. Brando said in a commanding voice, startling Harry. Why are you sitting by yourself for so long? Harry stiffened at the sight of the scary man and looked away. I am just waiting for my mommy, she's grocery shopping. Bando raised an eyebrow at that. So she left you alone, sounds like pretty SHTTY parenting if you ask me. Harry pouted as he glared cutely at Bandu. You shouldn't say bad words. Harry said with the pout still on his face, causing Bando to laugh. He naive and sheltered, huh? Sad. And my mommy loves me. She's the best mommy ever. She asked the nice man at the counter to watch me. Bando looked over to Denny, who waved. He scoffed. My feet are tired. I'm gonna take a seat. Bando decided to take a seat next to Harry and yawned loudly. DMN, I'll need a nap later, he grumbled. Harry pouted at his swearing. Bando rolled his eyes. I'm not changing who I am, runt. Harry crossed his arms and looked away, using his epic pouting maneuver. Bando snorted and shook his head. You're something, kid. Bando told him. Normally kids would be SHTT their pants if I even said hi to M. Harry didn't say a word, he only continued to pout. Bando chuckled again. And here you are willing to show attitude. After a few moments of silence, Bando shook his head. So what's your name, kid? Bando asked him. Harry. Harry replied, losing the pout but keeping his arms crossed. Bando smirked. The name's Bando. Hi Bando. Harry replied, looking at him. Maybe he wasn't so scary after all. After the tension between them disappeared, Harry and his new friend Bando talked and got to know each other a little bit. So what's your mom like? Bando asked. Harry's eyes brightened up at the mention of his mother. She's real pretty and nice to me. Harry told him. My mom was a total bee. Bando replied. Might be because of her that I ended up the way I am now. Harry looked at him with sympathy, not bothering to tell him off for his language. But hey, some people just don't have a lot of luck, I guess. Harry was silent for a moment. I know how you feel. Harry told him solemnly, causing Bando to look at him in confusion. The hell do you mean? Harry looked nervous, wondering if he should tell him. He opened his mouth. I had a hard life before mommy rescued me. Harry told him. Bando caught the hint. Our parents were, Harry shook his head no. They died a few years ago. Harry told him. Our relatives were, then. Harry didn't move for a moment before nodding. Bando chuckled. Some people are such dumb, he nodded his head slightly. My uncle's dead now. Bando raised an eyebrow at that statement. Oh. Who killed him? Mommy did. I was scared at first, but now I know she did it to protect me. Bando looked surprised for a moment before laughing loudly. That must be one hell of a mother. Bando exclaimed. I take back what I said, she sounds pretty kick-ass. Harry smiled. Language. Harry said with a chipper tone. Bando laughed uproariously. It took him a minute to calm down. I'll never watch my language, SQR. Never. Watch. My language. Harry gave him a sour look and started to pout again. Then he felt Bando's hand ruffle his hair. You're an interesting kid. After saying that, Bando got up from his seat and walked towards the stairs. I'll be seeing you, kid, take care of that mother of yours. Harry smiled after him and waved. By Mr. Bando. Bando simply raised his right arm and waved as he disappeared up the stairs. Hey, I like that kid. Harry smiled, happy to have made his first real friend since he was first taken in by Lucy. Harry, I'm back. Harry's head snapped towards the front door and saw Lucy walking towards him with a smile and 2 bags of groceries. He immediately hopped off his seat and ran to hug her leg. Mommy! Harry exclaimed happily. Lucy let out a soft giggle. I hope you weren't feeling lonely while I was gone. Lucy said. Harry smiled and shook his head. Nope. I made a friend. Lucy blinked in surprise before smiling. I'm very happy to hear that. Lucy grasped Harry's hand in hers and guided him towards the stairs. She stopped and gave Denny a smile. Thank you for looking after Harry while I was shopping. It was my pleasure, Mississippi. Denny replied with a smile. Any time. After saying goodnight to the owner, Lucy guided Harry to the 2nd floor and to their room where they would enjoy a nice meal before going to bed. The next day, Lucy and Harry woke up and had breakfast. Lucy was still tired, so they ate from the restaurant section downstairs. After they both ate a plate of pancakes, they decided to stay in the room for a while. Lucy was holding Harry in her lap, stroking his head, was enjoying having his head stroked, and leaned into Lucy's hand. The Diclonius smiled softly. She continued her stroking while she silently thought to herself. We should get out of here soon. Lucy thought. It won't be long before they find me again. I wonder who this new friend Harry met is. She looked down at Harry as she thought this. I shouldn't pry, but maybe I should tell him to see his friend a few more times before we leave. Harry, I hate to tell you this, but we can't stay too much longer. Harry looked up at his caretaker with confusion. If we stay here, I'll be found eventually. Oh. Harry said as he began to think. When will we leave? Harry asked her. In about 3 days. Lucy replied. I'm sorry, I know you made a friend. Harry looked down sadly, realizing that he'd have to leave his new vulgar friend behind. But he understood. His mother couldn't be caught by those bad men. While he would have preferred to stay here, he didn't want the bad men taking her away from him. But maybe you could see him a few times before we leave. Lucy finished when Harry was done thinking. Harry smiled softly and hugged his mother, grateful to her. Thank you. Harry said as Lucy smiled and hugged him back. You're welcome, Harry, she said softly, kissing his forehead. Harry giggled at the kiss as he snuggled up to her again. She held him closer and looked up at the ceiling, wishing there was some way for her to stop her pursuers for good. Meanwhile, in a castle in Scotland. It had been a few days since Dumbledore found out what happened at the Dursleys' household and told the teachers what happened. Hagrid had taken it especially hard. Several tables were destroyed in a fit of despair from the half-giant the other teachers had taken to avoiding him as of late. Dumbledore was currently sitting in his chair solemnly while his phoenix fox was trying to cheer him up by singing. It had little effect. How could I have been so blind, Fox? Albus asked the swan-like bird. How could I have subjected him to so much pain? Fox trilled softly. Albus sighed. And now he is missing and possibly dead because of my reckless actions. Just then, his fireplace flared up and a man that looked like he needed a bath badly came rushing out. Dumbledore frowned as he ran into his office. Is there something wrong, Mundungus? Albus asked as the bald man stopped in front of Dumbledore's desk. Albus took a sniff and cringes at Mundungus's smell. And why do you smell like rotten socks? Had a bit of an accident a few hours ago. Mundungus Fletcher told him. But I have something important to tell you. What is it? Please make it quick, I haven't been in the mood to speak much as of late. It's the Potter boy. Mundungus exclaimed, causing Albus's eyes to widen and stare at him in shock. I saw him with a young lass with pink hair of all things while I was conducting business. Dumbledore stared. Pink hair. Yeah. And a pink bow on the top of her head. Mundungus replied. Albus frowned. You're certain? If this is a trick, Mundungus. I swear, sir. Mundungus interrupted. That what I saw was real. And the Potter kid is still alive. Dumbledore couldn't believe his ears. He stood up from his chair and stared Mundungus in the eyes. Where did you spot them? Back to Harry and Lucy. After staying in their room for a while, Lucy and Harry decided to stretch their legs by taking a short walk. They eventually made their way to the park where they decided to stick around for a while. Lucy was holding Harry's little hand as they entered the park that had children with their parents. Harry had thankfully grown accustomed to crowded areas, thanks to staying in the hotel. The first thing they decided on playing on first was the swing sets. Lucy calmly stood in place and gently pushed him back and forth as he laughed in delight. After about 20 minutes, they decided to move on to a different activity. She took him to the monkey bars. His grip wasn't too strong. She was secretly using her vectors to keep him held up. Lucy adored Harry's laughter. After Harry was done playing on the monkey bars, she lowered him down to the ground and took him towards the slide where he slid down it a few times. Before she had adopted Harry, Lucy had found playgrounds absolutely stupid and mundane. Now she understood the value for these parks. She loved to see him happy. It warmed her heart to bring joy to someone's life. Before long, they eventually left to head back to the hotel to cook some lunch. Lucy was going to cook something good for Harry to make up for the fact that they were leaving. When they made it inside the front lobby of the hotel, Lucy froze when she saw someone she never expected to see here. Bando, one of her worst enemies. Bando stared at her, frozen as well. It took him a moment to register that the woman he was hunting was right in front of him and he only had a pistol on him at the moment. His eyes narrowed, and he stepped forward only to see Harry standing next to Lucy. His eyes widened, and he scowled. Kidnapping kids now, huh, ya DMN Diclonius? He spat. His tone shook out of her stupor and she glared at the taller man. I don't know what you're talking about. Lucy spat back. Don't play dumb with me. Bando pulled out his gun. Step away from the kid or I'll blow your effing brains out. Try me. Lucy growled as she vectors prepared to strike Bando down. Harry stepped back in fear. His mother and his new friend were about to start fighting. He started to tremble as he thought that one of them might get hurt. Mommy? He said softly. This caused Lucy to pause for a moment and glance at Harry. Don't worry. I'm only protecting you. She said softly. Bando's eyes practically bulged from their sockets. Wait, did that kid just call you mommy? Lucy took a moment to look at Bando with a raised eyebrow. Yeah, why does it matter to you? Lucy asked him. I what? Bando's brain shut down. Lucy looked at him in amusement while Harry looked at him with worry. Mr. Bando? Are you broken? Harry asked. Lucy looked at Harry in surprise. You know him? Lucy asked her son. He's the friend I was telling you about. At this moment, it was Lucy's turn to have her eyes bulge out in shock. Lucy and Bandu's brains were both broken. And Harry was very confused about what just happened. "Mommy, are you broken too?" he asked. He received no answer, she just stood there in shock. "Yeah, Mommy's broken too," Harry sighed as he went over to the chair that he sat on the other day and waited for both of them to start moving again. It took half an hour. At that point, both Lucy and Bandu were finally able to shake the cobwebs from their head. They gave each other another glance. They stared at each other for a minute before nodded in an unspoken agreement. They wouldn't fight each other. At least for now. But for the moment they were in a truce. "I will return to my son," Lucy said simply. "All right." Bandu replied as he reached into his trench coat pocket and took out a pack of cigarettes. "I'll just hang around here a bit, I guess." "All right," was all Lucy said as she took a seat by Harry, who had his eyes closed. She gently clasped her hand around his. His eyes snapped open and looks towards her, then smiled. "Mommy, you're not broken anymore," he said happily, hugging her. Lucy could hear Bandu snickering in the background but ignored him in favor of smiling towards Harry. "Is Mr. Bandu fixed too?" Lucy snickered. "Yes, Mr. Bandu is fixed, or as fixed as he's ever going to be," Lucy told Harry, earning a glare from Bandu. He snorted and took out another cigarette. Lucy internally smirked. She picked Harry up and placed him on her lap. Without a moment hesitation, Harry snuggled into her chest while Lucy hugged him. She smiled warmly and kissed the top of his head. Bandu looked at the scene with a raised eyebrow before shaking his head. "This will take some getting used to," Bandu thought. He sat in a nearby chair. "I need to sit down for a bit," Bandu thought as he continued to watch his enemy and the kid he met not that long ago interact. "Hate to say it, but she's an okay mom." After a few more minutes of interacting with each other, Lucy decided that it was time for her to make lunch. She rose to her feet, holding Harry close, then made her way over to the stairs, shooting Bandu one last glance. Bandu looked into her emotionless eyes and snorted. Taking it as a sign that he wasn't going to stop her, she continued up the stairs, leaving Bandu alone. "So Bandu was your new friend all along," she said softly to Harry. The little boy looked up at her worriedly. "Mommy? Did I do something wrong?" he asked. "You look a little upset." Lucy shook her head. "No, Harry, you did nothing wrong. It's just that we met before and it didn't exactly end well," Lucy told him, deciding not to give him the specifics of their encounter. Harry looked down. "Oh, I'm sorry, Lucy gently placed her hand over his mouth. "You have nothing to apologize for. There's no way you could have known," she reassured gently, running her fingers through his messy dark hair. Harry leaned into her touch with a small smile. "Now, what do you want for lunch?" she asked calmly. "I would like anything you make, Mommy," Harry said happily. Lucy smiled at her son's politeness. He really was perfect for her. Just then, they heard a loud commotion coming from downstairs. Lucy stiffened. "What is that?" she thought uneasily, having an awful feeling about the noises she was hearing. She then heard someone running up the stairs. When she turned around to see who it was Bandu with his gun out, and he looked frantic. "Diclonius B, pack your sh, take the kid and get the hell out of here. They found ya, and if they find you here, the kid's gonna be in trouble too." Lucy's eyes widened in horror as she quickly broke down the door with her vectors and dashed inside their room. Harry realized what was happening. The bad men wanted to take his mommy away from him. Since they didn't have much on them, it only took Lucy moments to pack up their belongings. And so, with Harry held in one arm and their stuff in the other, she leapt out the window, using her vectors to cushion the fall. Bandu watched as they left and nodded to where they once were. "See ya, kid." Bando said silently as he cocked his gun, ready to stall for enough time for Lucy and Harry to escape. Meanwhile, an elderly man in a purple robe stepped towards the hotel, having finally managed to pinpoint young Harry's location. "I hope that he's safe," Dumbledore said as he walked into the hotel to see a bunch of men inside the lobby. He frowned when he realized they were all wielding that peculiar long-range weapon Muggles were so fond of. Then he heard one of them speak. "We know that the Diclonius is here, old man, so tell us where she is," one of them growled out while holding his gun threateningly to the hotel owner. Dumbledore frowned and raised his brow. This wouldn't do. That man wasn't doing anything wrong. He would have to put an end to this. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Dumbledore said, causing all the men to look towards him. Denny took the opportunity to run and call the police. "Stay out of this," the man in the lead demanded. "We're here on official business." "And what, pray tell, would this official business entitle bothering an innocent bystander?" Dumbledore asked them. "We're looking for a very dangerous woman. She must be taken back to our facility and disposed of." "Oh. And what do this women look like, if you don't mind me asking?" Dumbledore asked the man he assumed to be the leader of this gang. The men looked at him seriously. "She has pink hair and horns. That's all the information you need." Dumbledore's face became serious. "You don't say," was all he said as he slowly reached for his wand. "Did she happen to have a small child with her?" "We have heard from reliable sources that she did, in fact, have a child. Black hair, lightning bolt-shaped scar, glasses." "I see." Dumbledore's eyes narrowed as he studied the group before him, ready to fight if he had to. "Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid that I can't let you harm the woman who rescued Harry Potter." Before the men could react, Dumbledore pulled out his wand. Obliviate. All the men had glazed over eyes, signifying that the memory-wiping charm had worked. Dumbledore sighed in relief. "Hey, geezer." Dumbledore turned to see a man walking towards him. "The hell'd you do to those douchebags? And who might you be?" Dumbledore asked him politely. The man smirked. "Name's Bandu. Did you just get those assholes of the kid and the Diclonius Dumbledore raised his eyebrow at his language. "I'm asking you a question, old man." Bandu barked. He shook his head. "My apologies, but I did." "How'd you do that? They look like they have no clue what the hell they're doing here." "I'm afraid that I can't tell you that," Dumbledore told him. "Did you not mention something about a Diclonius and a child?" "I ain't telling you till you explain to me what's going on here." Bandu crossed his arms. Dumbledore rubbed the bridge of his nose, debating what to do. Bandu smirked at the old man. "Well? You going to tell me?" Bandu asked. Dumbledore sighed. "Oh, very well." Meanwhile, with Lucy and Harry. Harry grabbed onto Lucy for dear life as she ran as fast as she could from the hotel. She didn't stop running until she was absolutely positive she wasn't being followed, at which point she ducked into an alleyway and went over to the other side of a dumpster and sat down and panted, completely out of breath. Harry whimpered and snuggled closer to her, resting his tiny head on her chest. Lucy gently placed her hand on the back of his head. "I think we're safe for now," Lucy said in between pants. Harry looked at her. I don't want them to find us, Mommy, I don't want them to take you away." Lucy rubbed his head to comfort him. "I don't want to leave you either. That's why we need to stay ahead of them." Harry sniffled. "Why are they after you? Why are they so mean?" Lucy was silent for a moment. "It's because they fear me for what I am. A Diclonius, a monster." Harry hugged her tightly. "No, Mommy, you're not a monster. You would have killed me if you were a monster, but you take care of me, and I love you, Mommy, so don't call yourself names." Lucy's eyes brightened as she smiled down at the little angel that she called her son. She teared up and gave him a kiss on his nose. I love you too, my baby boy, Harry giggled. The two almost forgot about their troubles, allowing themselves to sit and enjoy each other's company. Back to Dumbledore and Bando. So you're telling me that magic exists, the kid survived something he shouldn't have been able to, and he stopped an evil wizard when he was only 1 year old? Bando asked the elderly man in front of him. That is precisely what I am telling you, yes. Dumbledore replied. Bando whistled. So basically, anyone messes with the Diclonius, you can show up and make them forget whatever problems they had with her? Indeed I can. Dumbledore told him. So there's no reason for her to run off then? Bando stated. You'd better come find her with me so we can tell her what happened. I do believe we should. Dumbledore said in agreement. They both quickly left the hotel and started to run as fast as they could in hopes of finding her. Do you know where she might have gone? Dumbledore said as he tried to keep up with the much younger, much fitter man. Probably on her way to a harbor or some place where she can get out of town. Probably stop to take a breather somewhere, though, since the harbor's not very close to the hotel. Dumbledore nodded. Maybe she took refuge in an alleyway. Dumbledore reasoned. That'd be the smart thing to do. Bando agreed. Hey! Harry! Where the hell are ya? Having him yell so close to his ear caused Dumbledore to cringe. What a vulgar fellow. Dumbledore thought as he heard someone. Mr. Bando? Came a soft voice. They both stopped when they heard that voice in an alleyway right behind them. Hey, that's the kid. Bando said, moving towards the alley. Dumbledore breathed and then followed him, ready to meet the child whose life he made a living hell. Lucy stiffened when she heard Bando's voice. Bando, you're back. Why? Bando smirked as he walked towards her, but still far enough away from her vector range. It's because you won't need to worry about the lab assholes from getting you anymore. Bando declared. Lucy's eyes widened and her pupils dilated in shock. What? Yeah, you can thank this old kook right here. Bando stated while gesturing towards Dumbledore who just entered the alley. The old man looked at the tiny child in the red-headed woman's arms. He looked at him sadly as he saw that he was smaller than he should be. Lucy eyed the old man with a raised brow and a frown. Why are you staring at Harry like that? Lucy said with some aggression in her voice. Dumbledore shook his head and cleared his throat. I'm afraid that I did a horrible disservice to young Harry here. Dumbledore told her. Lucy's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about, old man? She demanded. Dumbledore sighed as he prepared to explain about the wizardry world, Voldemort, what happened on October 31st, 1981, and how Harry ended up with the Dursleys. He could already tell that she will not be happy with him when he got to the part where he left Harry with the Dursleys. Dumbledore's prediction was spot on when he finally got to the part of the story where he left Harry on the doorstep of the Dursley household. Dumbledore froze when he felt something hit his beard. Looking down, he noticed half of it had been cut clean off. He stared in horror as his beard, which he has been growing for almost 50 years, was sliced off in a millisecond. He looked to see Lucy looking less than pleased. That was an innocent beard. Dumbledore said, slightly ticked off. And my son was an innocent baby when you ruined his life. Lucy growled. Dumbledore closed his eyes for a moment. I know. Lucy's eyes narrowed and she held Harry protectively. You won't take him from me. She snarled. He's my son. Nobody else's. And I'm not going to challenge your right to have him as your son. Dumbledore told her. Lucy glared at him. Then what do you want? All I want is to make sure that Harry was safe and to ensure that he will be happy despite the horrible mistake that I made concerning him. Lucy's expression softened as she turned her attention to her son. He will be happy, she said softly. Harry smiled up to Lucy and hugged her. The scene in front of him made Dumbledore smile slightly. I know he will, now he has you. Bando stepped forward. So you don't have to leave anymore, he said calmly. Lucy looked up to the two men. You're certain Harry and I will be safe here? She asked. If you don't feel safe, I can get you accommodations at Hogwarts, Dumbledore told her. Lucy tilted her head and frowned. I don't know. Ooh. Can Mr. Bando come too so he doesn't have to pay for the hotel anymore? Harry asked innocently. Dumbledore chuckled as Bando looked at him in confusion. I think that will be doable, Dumbledore remarked. The younger man thought about it. Having a place to stick around would be kinda kick-ass. Harry looked gleeful as Lucy sighed in defeat. Looks like I've been outvoted her, Lucy said with a small smile. She turned to Dumbledore. Please take us to this Hogwarts place. All right then, if you three would kindly grab onto my robe sleeves. Everyone obeyed the elderly wizard, but each had a confused look when they did so. Now what? Bando asked the wizard, earning a smile from Dumbledore. Why, we apparate of course. Bando looked even more confused. What the hell is apparadash? Bando's words were interrupted when they disappeared with a pop and reappeared at the small village of Hogsmeade. Lucy, Bando, and Harry snapped their heads back and forth, trying to decipher what had just happened. The F are we? Bando yelled towards Dumbledore, who looked at him unfazed by his yelling. Hogsmeade, my friend, the old wizard explained calmly. The village near Hogwarts. How did we get here? Lucy asked with her eyes narrowed. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled in amusement. Why, magic of course, he replied. Lucy's eye twitched from the simple explanation but decided not to comment. Harry was looking around in wonderment as he took in the sights. Magic is real, he said softly. His uncle had been wrong after all. He smiled gleefully. Lucy looked down at her boy and smiled at his happy expression. I guess this is an amazing thing for you, huh? She said softly. Harry looked up and nodded. Lucy let out a chuckle. Dumbledore smiled. I'll be more than willing to give you a tour of the town later, but right now, why don't we retire to the castle and have some early dinner? Dumbledore offered them. Lucy nodded. I never did get a chance to cook, she agreed. Yeah, I could go for something right now, Bando added. Dumbledore smiled and gestured towards a path that led out of the village. If you would follow me, we can have you bellies filled. Bando followed with a grin. Lucy and Harry exchanged a glance, then followed suit. When they exited the village, they saw the castle that was Hogwarts. Bando whistled. That's a big butt castle. Harry and Lucy nodded in agreement at the breathtaking castle they were getting closer to. Dumbledore chuckled. Yes, she quite breathtaking, isn't she? Dumbledore asked rhetorically. It's appealing, Lucy agreed. Harry nodded, completely speechless. Well, to celebrate Harry's safety, we shall have a feast, Dumbledore exclaimed. They followed him through a courtyard and to the massive doors that was the front doors. Dumbledore turned to the group with a mysterious smile. Are you ready to see the castle? Dumbledore said as he waved his wand and opened the door. The group of three following him stared in awe at the interior of the castle. To say that it was massive would be an understatement. It's effing huge, Bando exclaimed. I agree with you, Lucy simply said, looking around the huge room. Dumbledore smiled, his eyes twinkling merrily. It appears that you're all enjoying the sights, Dumbledore said to them. But if you would kindly follow me, the Great Hall is just over here. He points towards another set of doors that was almost as big as the doors they just passed. I will prepare a meal for everyone. Dumbledore opened the door to the Great Hall, letting the three enter the hall. Why don't you three get comfortable while I go have your food prepared? Dumbledore asked as he walks away to alert the kitchens to make lunch for the three and to round up the teachers and staff. The group of three obediently took a seat at the long table. There was a long, awkward silence. "So," Bando drawled out. "This is definitely different." "Yeah," Lucy replied simply with a small nod. The room returned to an awkward silence once again. "The castle looks great," Lucy said as she eyed the room. "It's really cool," Harry agreed. Lucy smiled down at her son. "Hopefully we will be safe here for now. Those BSTRDS'll never get a hold of you now," Bandu replied. Lucy looked up at him. "What?" he asked. "It's true. It's not that. I'm just surprised that you care so much after all we've been through," Lucy explained. Bandu snorted. "I was just helping the kid, Diclonius." Lucy was silent for a moment then smiled. "Thank you, for helping Harry." Bando smirked. "Well, he is one of the only kids that hasn't flipped out when I tried talking to him. Can't imagine why most children would be scared of you," Lucy said sarcastically with a smirk. Before Bando could retort, Dumbledore walked into the room. "Dinner will arrive shortly," he declared. He walked in and was followed by other people with robes. One of them, a woman with glasses, looked over at Harry. Her eyes widened when she recognized who he was. "Albus, he's alive." Dumbledore smiled. "Yes, and we have these two wonderful people to thank for his safety." Lucy blushed and looked away and Bando raised a brow. "Who the hell are you people?" Bando said bluntly. "Yes, I have the same question," Lucy mumbled, still blushing. Minerva McGonagall glared at Bando before addressing them both. "My name is Minerva McGonagall, and I am the Transfiguration Professor of this school." McGonagall introduced. "Bandu." Bando replied bluntly, putting his feet on the table. "I'm Lucy." Lucy introduced herself uneasily. While they were introducing themselves, one of the people who followed Dumbledore into the room was staring at Harry. It was a man with long, greasy hair and a big nose. As he stared at Harry, he could see a ghostly image of a man that was older with the same hair but with brown eyes. This man was known as Severus Snape, MSTR potion brewer and potions professor. The man's eyes narrowed in the little boy's direction. "So the spawn of Potter is finally here," Snape thought bitterly. Lucy noticed the glare Snape was giving her Harry, and she gave him an even more vicious one right back. Snape immediately felt her gaze and looked up to see her intense glare. His eyes widened in horror. He could feel the killing intent. Lucy smirked at Snape's expression. "I'd advise you treat Harry kindly," she said to him. He slowly nodded. "Good," Lucy said coldly. Lucy turned back around to see that everyone was staring at both her and Snape. "He pisses me off," she said simply, running her fingers through Harry's hair. They decided to leave that as that and went on with the introductions. "So who the hell's all these other people?" Bando asked. They all stared at him for his filthy language. "What? Such horrid language," the very short man said. Bando scoffed. "Whatever, shorty." The shorter man took offense to this and angrily took out his wand. Bando found a nearby pitcher of water dumped onto his head. Bando swiped the water out of his eyes. "I'll get you for that, ya DMNBSTRD," the small man narrowed his eyes as he readied his wand. Bando tossed a bowl at his head. He easily dodged the bowl and fired a red stunner at Bando. Bando dodged the spell. The tiny man snorted. Bando, on the other hand, smirked at his small victory. "Missed me, you midget," Bando taunted. Lucy smacked Bando on the back of the head. "Stop it." Bando held the spot she smacked and hissed in pain. "He started it. He protested." The shorter man scoffed. "It wasn't me that started this, it was you and your dirty mouth." "Phileas," a stout woman snapped. Control yourself. Phileas Flitwick flinched at her snapping at him. But Pomona. Flitwick started before being interrupted. Anyway. Dumbledore exclaimed. Everyone stopped to look at Dumbledore. Let's enjoy lunch while we still can, though I guess it would be more of a late lunch than anything. Dumbledore explained. In fact, you could almost consider it a dinner, Dumbledore chuckled as he clapped his hands and food magically appeared on the table. I shouldn't be surprised at this point, said Bando. Me neither. Lucy said stoically as she looked at all the food that was spread before them. She began filling Harry's plate. After filling his plate, she started to fill her plate as well. Bando followed their example and quickly filled his plate full of food. Soon, everyone was gathered around the table with plates full of food. Dumbledore stood up from his seat with a smile. He cleared his throat. Before we begin our lovely meal, I would like to formally greet our new residents of Hogwarts. Dumbledore said as he looked towards the trio. Lucy, Bando, and Harry all looked around at the other occupants of the table. They were staring right back at them. Quit staring, Dot. Bando grumbled. Flitwick gave him a dirty look but refrained from saying anything. Bando lit a cigarette. As I was saying, I would like to introduce Mr. Bando, Miss Lucy, and Mr. Potter to the castle. Dumbledore quickly said, hoping to avoid another scene. There was a chorus of murmurs sounding throughout. Did he say Potter? Aurora Sinistra asked in a whisper to her neighbor. Yes, Harry Potter is he. I can't believe that he's actually here, the boy who lived. At this point, Harry started to get uncomfortable with all the staring and the murmurs. Lucy glared and held him protectively. Bando frowned at how they were making Harry uncomfortable. Hey, old people. Quit talking about the runt like he's not here. Bando snapped. The professor stopped muttering about Harry and looked sheepish. Lucy flashed Bando a thankful smile. He simply grunted in response and went to his meal. The teachers decided to eat their own meals while talking to each other about their day. And Lucy was spoon-feeding Harry. Harry happily opened his mouth to allow the food to enter his mouth. The Diclonius was smiling warmly all the while. Dumbledore and McGonagall looked at their interaction and smiled. I see he's found a suitable guardian. McGonagall said softly. Indeed he has. Dumbledore replied back just as softly as she did. Lucy heard them, and she blushed with a smile. While this was happening, Snape was grumpily picking at his food, still thinking about the intense glare that pink-haired women gave him. All because of Harry Bloody Potter. Snape's lip curled unpleasantly as he thought about the spawn of his archenemy. He snuck a quick glare at Harry. He knew he was going to be trouble, just like his BSTRD of a father. He saw Lucy look in his direction and immediately looked down at his food. Lucy glared at him for a moment. He's going to be trouble, I know it. Lucy thought to herself as she returned her attention towards Harry. If he pulls anything, he's gonna find himself with half his hair gone. Lucy chuckled at that thought, imagining what the slimy peach would look like with only half his hair. Soon enough, the meal had ended, and Lucy and Bando were being guided to their chambers. After climbing up a few flights of stairs, holy sh they move. Bando yelled. They finally made it to rooms that were reserved for guests. Bando had wanted his own room, leaving Lucy and Harry in the second guest room. There were 2 beds but they decided to sleep in one bed together. The Diclonius tucked them both in, wrapping her arms and vectors around the little boy. Night, Mommy, Harry said softly. Harry fell asleep, snoring cutely. Lucy gave him a kiss on the cheek, then peeked out the window of their new home. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw that it had begun snowing outside. She watched as the powdery snow fell gracefully down to the ground. The Diclonius tilted her head and let out a small She started to plan how she and Harry will have fun tomorrow. She smirked. He was going to love the snow. Her smirk didn't leave her face, even after she finally fell asleep. The snow fell delicately outside, rapidly building into a winter wonderland. 8 hours later, Harry woke up and gave out a yawn. He rubbed his little eyes to get the sleep out of them and looked over at his still sleeping mother. He smiled as he cuddled into her, causing her to wrap him in her arms. The little boy managed to get a glimpse out the window and he blinked when he saw that it was snowing. He stared at it for a moment before getting excited. He immediately placed his hands on his mother's shoulder and gently shook her to wake her up. Lucy's eyes fluttered open and groaned as she sat up. "Is it already morning?" she said drowsily. She looked to see what had woken her, and saw her son's sweet smiling face. She smiled back. "Morning, Harry," Lucy greeted as she yawned. She gave him a kiss on the forehead. "You look happy this morning." Harry giggled. "It's snowing outside," Harry told her. Lucy blinked, then she remembered. Yes, it is." She smiled and sat up. She picked Harry up and sat her on her lap. "Do you want to play in the snow?" Lucy asked him. Harry nodded enthusiastically. Lucy giggled. "Well then. Let's go." She frowned slightly, realizing she didn't really have any proper winter gear. "Maybe I could ask one of the teachers about letting me borrow one," Lucy thought to herself as she got up and started to escort Harry to breakfast. "No, I'm sure I'll be fine. I fell into the ocean and came out without much issue. I'm sure I can handle it." She walked past Bando, who looked like he was still tired. "Where are you off to, Diclonius?" the man grumbled. "I'm going to get breakfast for Harry and I, then we're going to go outside enjoy ourselves in the snow," Lucy explained as the three of them walked down the stairs. Bando raised a brow. "You playin' in the snow?" he chuckled. "This I gotta see." Lucy rolled her eyes. "Whatever," was all Lucy said as they finally made it to the bottom of the staircase and headed towards the doors to the Great Hall. Breakfast was a relatively simple affair. They sat together and piled their plates, then started eating. They did notice that there was a few children, whom they assumed to be students, were eating breakfast as well while stealing glances at them. They were ignored for the most part, though Bando did shoot them a few dirty looks. Breakfast had ended quickly, and the trio had now entered the outside of the school. While she decided to go without winter clothes, she made sure that Harry was properly dressed. She was surprised how little the cold affected her. "It seemed like I was right about now being able to handle it," Lucy thought as she led Harry to a nice spot to play at. Bando smirked. "Guess you don't mind cold, 'cause you got such a cold personality, huh?" Before he knew it, Bando felt something grab his leg and flip him. He grumbled in irritation as he fell on his back in the snow. "B!" Bando yelled as Lucy smirked. "BSTRD!" She replied calmly, turning her back to the angered was seething so much, that he kicked and nearby heard a loud whump and a muffled yelp of surprise. He looked up to see that in the spot that Lucy was once standing in, was a pile of snow. The man smirked and snickered. He had gotten his revenge without meaning to. Just then, Lucy's head popped out and shook the snow off her head. She frowned up at the branch. "How did that happen?" she mused. Bando looked away innocently. She gave Bando a look before trying to get out of the pile. Bando responded by tossing a snowball at her face, caking it in the white powder. The man shrugged. "Guess more snow fell on ya." She used her vectors to remove the snow from her. She looked less than amused. With a huff, she turned away from the aggravating man, only to slip on a patch of ice and fall face first into some snow. Bando smirked when the Diclonius got her head stuck in the snow, her peach sticking straight up in the air. Smiling devilishly, he decided to scoop up some snow, roll it into a ball, and toss it right at her peach. It was a direct hit, and the snowball stuck. Lucy stiffened when she felt that hit. Bando stifled his laughter, slapping his knee lightly. Lucy started to wiggle her peach in an attempt to get out. She also pressed her hands against the ground, pushing against the snow as she did so. Moments later, her head burst free with a loud gasp. She quickly got back to her feet and glared at Bando. Bando raised his hands in defense. "Hey, not my fault." "Oh really?" Lucy asked, clearly not amused as she used her vectors to scoop up snow and make her own snowballs, one in each vector. Bando frowned in annoyance as the snowballs Lucy slammed into his shirt. He snorted. Whatever, then he lit a cigarette. But before he could take a puff of it, a snowball whizzed by, taking the cigarette out of his mouth. He looked at her in irritation. "Go play with your kid, Diclonius." Lucy smirked as she walked past him. "All right, have fun with your soggy cigarette," she told him while passing him. The older man scowled and crossed his arms as he watched her. "B," was all he said before he looked down at his poor cigarette. Lucy approached Harry with a smile. "Hi Harry, want to go sledding?" Lucy asked him. Harry looked up at her and nodded. "But what are we gonna use for a sled?" Lucy paused and thought for a moment. She turned towards a large tree and smirked thoughtfully. Using her vectors, she cut through a large chunk of bark, and sliced it into the form of a slightly sloppy but still effective sled. "There we are, one hand-made sled ready to go," Lucy said triumphantly. She placed the sled at the top of the hill, then gently scooped up Harry, placed him in the back and took her seat in the front. "Hang on Harry," Lucy said gently as she used her vectors to push them down the hill. At first, all was well. The little boy was laughing happily as the sled went down the hill, and the Diclonius was smiling. Then, the sled hit a rock. Lucy's eyes widened comically as she was launched off of the wooden sled. Whomp! Her head collided with a snow pile and laid there motionlessly for a minute before she shook the snow off her head and stood up. She felt very dizzy and stumbled a little bit. Lucy stumbled about dizzily, as there had been a rock under the snow she had collided with. In no time at all, she stumbled right into a tree and fell on her back. She let out a soft groan of irritation. Can this get any worse? Lucy thought to herself. As if the universe decided to be cruel. The tree that she stumbled into dropped a foot of snow on her the second she thought that. There was a moment of silence before a muffled sigh was heard from beneath the snow. She stayed like that for a moment before attempting to get out of her current predicament. The top of the snow pile began to move and wiggle within minutes. Her body popped out of the snow. Her legs were still stuck, however. Irritated, Lucy tried her hardest to get her feet loose, unknowing bashing her back into the tree. Her eyes widened when she noticed the shadow forming over her. She looked up with an uneasy groan. Moments later, in her place was a pile of snow with a single pink eye visible from within, her hair covering the other eye. She decided then and there that she did not like snow at all. She closed her eye and let out another muffled sigh. Yup, winter could go F itself for all she cares. She began to shake her head, and the snow that covered her head shook off. Using her vectors, she blew off all of the snow covering her body and took a step forward with a relieved sigh only to slip and fall backwards. She fell right into a pile of snow head first, burying her entire upper body in snow. Bando was watching the whole time, and he laughed uproariously at her. She growled in frustration, being able to hear his muffled laughter. Her legs kicked furiously as he tried to escape. Eventually, she gave up, giving a sigh of frustration. Her legs were sticking high into the air, spread wide apart with her toes touching. But as she gave up, she felt something grab her and hoist her from the ground. "There you go, Diclonius," Bando said calmly. "Don't go fallin' in again, 'cause I'm not bailing you out next time." Lucy stared at him for a moment, then smiled. "Thanks." Bando snorted in response and pulled another cigarette. This time, Lucy didn't throw a snowball at it. Instead, she looked over at Harry. He was happily playing with some of the students and was having the time of his life. She supposed he had gotten distracted when she fell off the sled smiling. Lucy decided to go over and lean on a nearby tree to watch. After a few moments, she heard some weird noises and looked around to see what was making it, only to be smacked by something and sent flying in the air. She let out a yelp of shock and pain, and found herself launched towards a large snow pile. The last thought in her head before she impacted the ground was, "OSH." Snow sprayed outward from her impact, and there was a muffled scream. Bando was slack-jawed at what he just saw and only had one question on his mind. Did that tree just kick that Diclonius bee's peach? He looked over to see how she had winded up. To his surprise, not only did she get sent far away, but the only thing visible from her was her peach. He looked as it wiggled in an attempt to get corners of his mouth turned up, and he collapsed on his back, laughing hysterically and clutching at his sides. By the time she was able to get escape the snow's grasp, which was made possible by her vectors, Bando's side were aching but he couldn't stop laughing. Lucy had pried herself free by pushing her vectors against the snow, and landed flat on her peach. Blushing, she turned to the laughing man. To say that she was beyond furious at this point was an understatement. She would have liked nothing else but to smack him over his head with a baseball bat. Still, he did help her out earlier, so she decided to direct her anger at the DMN. Cracked her neck as she started to walk menacingly towards the demon tree. The tree responded by simply smacking her again, sending her back into the snow in the same predicament she had just escaped from, utterly ruining the dramatic effect she was going for. "My sides!" Bando shouted, laughing again. She angrily gets out again and storms to the tree again, only for it to happen again. It happened 7 more times, and by this point, she was now stuck in the snow like glue. Lucy growled at her inability to free herself. "I got it." Bando calmly tossed a cigarette at the tree, and it promptly burst into flames. The whomping willow started to writhe in pure agony as it flailed about. From within her snowy prison, Lucy sensed victory. "I hope that tree burns," Lucy thought as she continued to get herself free again. Unfortunately for her, her wish would not come through because Pomona Sprout was close enough to hear the commotion and rushed to find the source. She did it. Bando pointed to Lucy's peach when he saw the expression on Sprout's face. Drawing her wand, Sprout pointed at the tree and shot a jet of water at the tree, putting the flames out. The willow looked relieved as it sagged. The professor then turned to the trapped Diclonius. She pointed her wand at her and used a levitating spell to get her out from the snow. Lucy smiled gratefully, then found herself dumped back in. Then pulled back out. Then dumped back in. The professor was not pleased. Bando, however, was very pleased by this development and was rolling on the ground laughing. Eventually, Sprout just left Lucy buried as she stormed off, grumbling about disrespect for plant life. At this point, Bando was gasping for air and completely unable to laugh anymore. He sat up and wiped the tears from his eyes. "I better get her out of there," Bando thought as he stumbled towards Lucy's legs. "Nah, I told her she was on her own. I'm gonna go get some grub." He decided to go back to the castle to get food. Meanwhile, Lucy was kicking furiously to try to get out of her hole. "I'm going to get that bee for this," Lucy thought angrily. "And her DMN tree too." In her rage, she used her vectors to fling the snow around her away, freeing her from the snow. She slowly turned to scowl at the tree. She was about to go at it again when she heard Harry calling her. "Mommy!" Harry yelled as he ran to her. "I found you." Lucy blinked and hugged her son. "Oh, hello, Harry. Where were you?" "I was playing with some of the students," Harry told her. "So you didn't see me hit the snowbank then?" Lucy mumbled with a small blush. Harry looked at her in confusion. "What do you mean? Did you get hurt, Mommy?" Harry asked in concern for his mother. "No, just really embarrassed," Lucy replied with a grimace. Harry looked at her sadly and hugged her. "I'm sorry that you had a bad day." Lucy chuckled and wrapped her vectors around him, bringing him close to her. "You know what? It doesn't matter. Harry smiled as he tightens his hug and rubs his face on her leg. The two stayed like that for a moment. You hungry, Harry? Lucy asked him. Harry nodded eagerly. Lucy chuckled as she scooped him up with her vectors and deposited him in her arms. Let's find Bando and get lunch. Harry giggled and snuggled into her chest. She smiled as she carried him up to the castle to get their next meal. Holding him made the day's events all worthwhile. The only possible way to make the day even more worthwhile is getting revenge on Bando for throwing her under the bus like that. Oh well, that could wait another day. But when it finally happened, it will be she who gets the last laugh. Mommy, are you sure about this? Harry asked. Yes, it'll be fine. Lucy replied, ruffling his hair. Bando's a tough guy. He can deal with an innocent prank. She glared in the man's direction. BSTRD's gonna pay for yesterday. She thought to herself as she looked up at the snowy rooftop of the abandoned building. She just had to push the snow onto him with her vectors and her mission would be complete. Little did she know. Bando had seen her peeking out at him from behind the building. Taking a guess about her intentions, Bando smirked evilly as he took out a grenade he was saving for an emergency. He carefully estimations, the hired gun discreetly pulled the pin off the casualty grenade and tossed it on Lucy's side of the roof. Let's see you deal with this. Brando thought as he passed the house. There was a small explosion and two surprised yelps, along with a loud whump, were heard. Bando blinked. The bee got the kid in on it too, huh? He shrugged. He wants to try to screw around with me, he'd best be prepared to put up with the consequences. He continued walking while whistling a tune. On the other side of the building, both Lucy and Harry were struggling to escape the snow pile they were buried in. After 30 seconds their heads popped out of the snow at the same time. Harry looked like he was having the time of his life while Lucy looked like she wanted to skin a certain someone. Harry turned to his mother and saw she had a little beard made out of snow. He giggled. You look like Santa Claus. He exclaimed. Lucy blinked and looked down at her chin to see her chin and chuckled. I guess I do. Lucy said as she picked up Harry and stood up. Come on. Let's go find Bando and get him. Mommy? Yes. I have an idea. Lucy listened closely as Harry told her the details, her grin widening the more she heard. And so, seconds later, Harry and Lucy stood behind a tree with snowballs at the ready, watching Bando approaching from the top of a large hill. He noticed them from the corner of his eye and smirked. Still wanna play those games with me? Dumb asses, he thought. The mother-son duo sprung from the tree and began to toss snowballs. Lucy was using her vectors as well as her hands to toss them. Bando stared at the snowballs impassively. Then he ducked, bobbed and weaved around them, successfully dodging every ball of compact powder without a single speck of it on his clothes. Lucy and Harry exchanged glances and hurriedly began to make some more. Bando smirked and lit a cigarette, noticing something out of the corner of his eye. A chubby man was building a snowman. He had a name tag that said, "Hello. My name is Stevie." Bando approached him with a bored expression on his face, then grabbed him by the shirt and held the gun to his throat. Gimme the snowball and you don't get hurt, lard boy. Okay. Okay. Don't hurt me. Stevie replied, still grinning. Your voice pisses me off. Bando shot Stevie in the knee. Ouch. Stevie exclaimed before limping away. What a super mean guy. Bando grabbed the largest snowball and rolled it towards the hill Harry and Lucy were making snowballs at the bottom of. You wanna throw snowballs? Get a load of my snowball. He muttered to himself before pushing it down. Okay, I think we have enough. Lucy said with a bundle of over 30 snowballs in her and Harry's arms. They turned around to throw the snowballs at Bando only to freeze at the sight of a snow boulder heading their way and getting bigger as it collected snow. "Ah sure dash," Lucy said before the snowball bowled them over and took them away as the boulder headed toward some trees. When the boulder smashed into the trees, it exploded into a massive pile. The duo quickly dug their way out of the remains of the boulder, only for more snow to fall from the trees and land on them. Bando crossed his arms and smirked as two smaller piles slowly rose from the bigger one. Two pairs of eyes became visible from within the piles. One emerald green, looking like he was eager for another go. One burning red with rage, looking like she wanted his head on a silver platter. Brando laughed loudly and walked away, leaving Lucy to stew in her anger. "I don't care how long it takes, I will end you," Lucy vowed as Harry giggled. "Can we do that again?" Harry asked, causing Lucy's anger to subside. "Maybe later, Harry," Lucy said gently, then glared at where Brando went. "But right now we need to come up with another plan." They eyed a nearby DRG store. Lucy gained a thoughtful expression. And so? Mommy, what are laxatives?" Harry asked. "They make you want to go to the bathroom," Lucy replied simply. "Bando's going to the bar, and we're going to slip these in his drink," she said with a grin. "Boo-hoo. Mean," Harry said with a small giggle. They watched Bando enter the bar, called the Three Broomsticks, and snuck in behind him, taking a seat at a table. Lucy pulled up a menu to hide their faces and watched as he ordered his drink. "We need some kind of distraction," she mumbled. Harry tilted his head. "Maybe tap his shoulder?" he asked. Lucy grinned. "Yeah, that works." She prepared her vectors as she opened the laxatives. Bando's drink arrived. Just as he was about to take a sip, Lucy tapped his shoulder with one of her vectors. When he turned to see what had happened, another vector dumped the laxatives into his drink. Lucy grinned. "Come on," she whispered to Harry. "Let's get out of here before he sees us." They snuck out of the building, Harry stifling his giggles. "So, what's a fine piece like you doing working in a joint like this?" Bando asked the waitress. She gave him a curt glare and turned away. "Pfft, whatever, B." He went to sip his drink but stopped when he noticed something was off with the smell. "Some BSTRD spiked my drink," he said out loud before peeking outside and noticing some rustling bushes. "And I think I just found out who did it." He stared at his drink. It was hot coffee. He had wanted to warm up. He sighed and rose to his feet. "What a waste," he muttered, stepping out of the bar and dumping the coffee out into the bushes he had seen rustling, and dropped the cup where he poured his drink out. He shoves his hands into his pocket and skulks away. When he was out of range, one of the bushes shook rapidly and Lucy popped out, then screeched in pain from the hot coffee that was dumped on her head with the cup balanced on top of her head. She desperately tried to shake the coffee off before launching herself at a snow bank to cool her scalding skin. Harry popped out of his bush. He had some on his head too. But the pain was going away rapidly, so he didn't mind as much. He blinked when his mother shoved her entire head into a snowbank, steam pouring out of it when she did so. "Mommy? Are you okay?" Lucy groaned as she pulled her head out. She glared at Bando. "Harry, let's go and get your sled," she said curtly. And so, Harry and Lucy sat atop a steep hill. Bando would be coming this way in order to return to the castle. And Lucy and Harry would be ready for him. Bando walked by, noticing a large ledge at the bottom of a steep hill. He put his hands in his pockets and stood to admire the view. Lucy's eyes widened. No way, it didn't seem natural that they'd have such a perfect target. She couldn't waste this opportunity. She kicked off and they went down the hill. Mommy? I thought we were gonna aim for the tree over there so we don't fall off the cliff." Lucy's eyes widened at the realization that she had messed up. Oh well, at least they'd take Bando with them. Or not. Bando had known they were there the entire time. He had lured her into a false sense of security. And then, at the very last second, he stepped out of the way, avoiding them entirely. Lucy turned to see his smirk, and the sled went rocketing over the ledge, launching its two occupants right off and sending them pitching headfirst towards the snowy ground. Brando looked down at where they landed. At this point started to feel sad for the two and their inability to get him. The large man then shrugged. "Oh well, not my fault that they didn't give up by now." Brando took out a cigarette and lit it before he walked back towards the castle. At the bottom of the cliff, Harry and Lucy wiggled their peach to get themselves out of their current predicament. Harry was the first one to get out and clapped happily, feeling exhilarated. That was fun. Harry cheered when the snow around Lucy shifted as she rose from the snow, looking like she was about to snap. She pressed her feet against the snow and thrusted her lower half back and forth, eventually forcing herself free. Her eyes narrowed. "Let's make snowballs. We're going to get him no matter what." And so Bando was walking through the woods, nearly back at the castle. He noticed movement from behind the trees. "I see you back there," he warned. "Now," Lucy commanded. Bando groaned and leapt over the mother and child as they attempted to tackle him to the ground and face wash him. "DMNIT to hell," Lucy bellowed. She ended up crashing into Harry as they flew towards each other, and due to her heavier body weight carried him with her as she went flying. The two of them hit the ground and slid across the powder, eventually becoming buried within the snow. Bando watched them slide off. After a moment, he noticed two piles forming from the snow. He approached the rapidly growing piles of snow, expecting to see their heads pop out. What popped out of the snow was not their heads. It was their posteriors, both of which started to shake back and forth. Brando couldn't help but stare at Lucy's peach as it shook, the angle letting him see her panty-clad bottom. "I have to say this for the bee, she has a sweet peach," Brando admitted as he stared at her peach for a couple more seconds before walking away, deciding that he wanted to get warm more than he wanted a good view of his enemy. Before he left, he turned to toss two snowballs at their rears. They stuck. "Hey, Diclonius bee," he called out. "How about instead of trying to do dumbass pranks you actually do that whole Christmas business you were going out to do in the first place, huh?" While she was pissed when she felt the snowball hit her, she froze when she realized that she allowed her longing for revenge cloud her mind. "That's right, I was going to get a few gifts for Harry after McGonagall explained to me what Christmas was." Lucy remembered, feeling guilty for forgetting. "DMNU Bando," she thought angrily. Someday I'll make you pay for yesterday and today. But first the presents. And before that, how do I get out of here?" 10 minutes later, Lucy led Harry back to Hogsmeade and to some of the shops. Lucy and Harry looked at all the weird things that the magical folk sold, happy that Dumbledore was able to help them exchange some of the money that Lucy got from the police into the coins that they used in the magical world. Harry looked around and felt a little overwhelmed by all the foreign things around him. I don't know what's what," Harry answered, looking at all the candies and toys around them. "Do you need help?" A young male's voice behind them called. The two turned around to see a 13-year-old red-haired boy with freckles on his cheeks approaching them. He was wearing the school uniform that was lined with red and had an image of a lion on his upper torso. "Hi," Lucy said uneasily. "I don't know if you can help us. We were just looking for some presents for my son here, but he's not sure what he wants." The young student smiled. "Don't worry, I was going to find some things for my younger brothers and sister. So I can help you while I'm searching around." Lucy smiled. "I really appreciate it," Lucy told him. "What's your name?" "Me? I'm William Weasley, but everyone calls me Bill." Bill introduced himself. As the trio looked through the store, they decided to start a conversation. Bill mentioned that he had 5 younger brothers and 1 sister. The oldest of his brothers, Charlie, started Hogwarts the previous year and was currently at the castle. Bill also mentioned that his youngest brother, Ron, was about the same age as Harry and might start when Harry did. Lucy blinked. A boy Harry's age, she said. I wonder if they would be good friends. After about an hour of browsing the store, Lucy was able to find a good gift for Harry while Bill was able to buy something for all his siblings. Thank you, Lucy said to the boy gratefully as she watched her Harry smile at his gifts. You're welcome, Bill told them, walking beside them as they exited the shop and made their way towards the castle. Mom always said that we should be kind to others. Lucy smiled sadly, looking towards the castle. Your mother is a kind person, she said softly. Those words reminded her of Kuta and his endless kindness. Well, I'll catch you two later. I need to get to Charlie, Bill said, shaking Lucy out of her thoughts as Bill started to walk faster towards the castle. Maybe I'll see you around, he called back to them. Lucy smiled and waved as Bill got further and further away until he was out of sight. He was very nice, she said softly. I like him, Harry agreed. Me too, Harry, me too, Lucy replied as she picked Harry up and continued up to the castle. Want to get some hot chocolate to warm up? Lucy asked him. Harry's eyes lit up and nodded enthusiastically. Lucy chuckled. All right, let's get out of this cold. And so, the Diclonius and human child made their way to the castle, already tasting that warm, chocolatey goodness on their tongues. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and Gamer95 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.